Hello and welcome back to the Greek Pyramid. This channel has obviously so far been based around Percy Jackson. When I went on the Camp Half-Blood Reddit the other day, I saw some people making Pokémon teams with characters within the Percy Jackson universe. I've been playing a fair bit of Pokémon Showdown with a friend recently, so I thought I would also try and combine the two. In fact, originally my third or fourth or fifth video was going to be a video ranking every single Pokémon, but I think that's for another day. Most of these I did try and think of some form of reasoning behind them rather than it just being off general vibe of the Pokemon. Each one of them will have an evolution of some form. First Pokemon in Percy's team is Houndoom, meant to represent Mrs. O'Leary. There are a few dog Pokemon, but I think Houndoom is best for a Hellhound. Then Aegislash. I mean, realistically, anyone could have one of these. Most of them have swords and daggers, but we've seen Percy with a strong connection to Riptide. Mandibuzz. I feel like I pronounced that wrong. This one's a bit more rogue, but it's from the crossover book Crown of Ptolemy, when he becomes the host of Nekbet, the vulture goddess. Hence Mandibuzz. Swampert. I wasn't sure if to give them all a starter, but I've given Percy a starter anyway. It's a water and ground type. Obviously water, Poseidon. Although ground also has some links to Poseidon, with him also being the Earth Shaker, despite Percy not really necessarily showing that ability. I mean, there are many water Pokemon I saw people giving Percy that are maybe better suited, such as like Blastoise and things like that, but I feel like I've just gone for Swampert. I quite like Swampert anyway, so. Fifth is Vaporeon. Pretty obvious. If we have an evolution, his is obviously going to be Vaporeon. It's one that fits him best. Then last in his team is Mudsdale. I was struggling to figure out which Pokemon would best represent Blackjack, as there isn't a Pegasus Pokemon. I think Mudsdale is the best of the horse Pokemon. That's Percy's team. I think this one does fit quite well compared to some of the other teams that have been created. We'll see in a second. Annabeth's team. First off, we've got Alakazam. Its Pokédex entry states that it has an IQ of over 5,000. I feel like Annabeth would try and garner information and best Alakazam at many things. I think it's just quite a good pair. Watching them interact would be quite interesting. Kind of need an owl Pokemon for Annabeth, being the daughter of Athena. There are quite a few different owl Pokemon, which I'd forgotten about. So quite a few people I saw on Reddit chose like Noctowl. I think I'm also going to give her a starter, so I've gone for Rowlet. Third is Espeon. So this is her evolution. It just seems kind of the wisest of the EVs. This one feels a little bit more shoehorned in. Some of the EVs are really obvious. Such with Percy and Vaporeon, but I've gone for Espeon for Annabeth. Then we've got Kecleon, obviously based on a chameleon, which can turn kind of invisible, or in one of the games was truly invisible. This is linking to Annabeth's Yankees cap, which can turn the user invisible, so I think this one also makes sense. Fifth in the team is Klefki. This Pokemon is in here due to the part of the Battle Labyrinth with Janus, where he's kind of throwing a key around and forcing Annabeth to make a decision. This feels maybe a bit too small of a detail to really include with Annabeth, but I just thought it fit quite well. Then to cap off Annabeth's team, we've got Porygon 2. It's made up of computer data, artificially intelligent, and capable of learning new behaviours on its own, including information it does not need to know. Almost as if it was made by Daedalus's laptop, you know? It feels perfectly suited for Annabeth and the laptop to create things. Right, Jason's team. First up, we got Zeb Striker, Electric Horse. Seems simple as it's basically a replacement or to represent Tempest, the best of any Pokemon. Then we've got Thundurus, maybe a bit on the nose, and predominantly in the name, the fact it's an electric flying type, hence Jason. Maybe this Pokemon is better suited to represent Zeus rather than Jason, but for this we're just doing the 7. Jolteon, pretty obvious as to why this is his evolution, with it being an electric type. Emolga, very similar to Thundurus being an electric flying type. I've got to say, I did find it a little bit difficult to come up with unique ideas for Jason as a whole team, so this one feels a little bit lazy in places. It's basically just going, oh, that's an electric type. The penultimate Jason Pokemon, we got Lycanroc. I know all the Romans went through the Wolf House, but I feel the person most connected and most associated with the Wolf House is Jason. So I'm going to go for Lycanroc in its dusk form. Lastly for Jason, I've gone for Psyduck. This one I kind of think is quite funny, as Psyduck is constantly being bothered by headaches, whilst Jason was pretty much constantly knocked out and fainting for quite a few fights, particularly early on after we just met him. So I feel like Psyduck kind of associates with that side of him. Then we've got Piper. First Pokemon I've got for Piper is Oranguru, known to instruct other Pokemon, much like Piper with her charm speak. In addition, they are not known to get on with others of its kind, and Piper does have some friction with some of the other Aphrodite children at the beginning of her time in the cabin, so I feel like Oranguru fits well here. Arbok, when we've seen Piper charm the snake people, and links to the Cherokee story, meaning she probably managed to charm the Arbok into the Pokeball with the right song. Piper's evolution will be Sylveon, probably the most stylish Eevee. Fourth in Piper's team is Xatu, able to see in the future, much like Piper with her dagger. I feel like this one probably fits the best out of all of Piper's Pokemon. Then Love Disc. This one feels a little bit lazy for me, I'm not going to lie. It's obviously shaped like a love heart, meant to link to Aphrodite. Last on this list is Togepi. In here, because it knows the move Charm, and I believe in the anime it uses Charm as well, which lowers the opponent's attack, so it has Charm speak connotations. I mean, there are a bunch of Pokemon that know Charm. Togepi was the first one I thought of for some reason. So this Pokemon could be subbed in if you think there's someone who maybe fits a little bit better. I'm open to ideas for this last one in particular for Piper. Then, moving on to Frank. First one's pretty obvious. Ursaring. A bear being one of the animals that we've seen Frank turn into. It's also one of the animals that made him realise his family's gifts, as he realises his mother turned into a bear when Frank was confronted with one. Then we got Ditto. Again, a pretty obvious one, due to his shape-shifting abilities. Trying to find an evolution that best fits Frank rather than the others was a bit more difficult. This one we got for Glaceon. I mean, the best link I could come up with was he went to Alaska. Yep. I don't think he fit any of the evolutions. If you have a better idea, I'm definitely open to it. It was either Glaceon or Leafeon for Frank. I guess could have been Leafeon because of his firewood. Then we've got Timber. I mean, he's always carrying around his plank of wood. Timber. I presume he can't really be separated from it. Probably should have looked that up. Also, it says that when it is able to easily lift its heavy burden, it is about to evolve. And this fits with Frank finally accepting his fate of the burnt stick and allowing him to overcome it and move on. We've then got Decidueye, capable of firing its feathers as arrows. Frank, known to be good at archery, even hoping his father was Apollo when he hadn't yet been claimed. So this Pokemon makes sense for Frank. The last one on this list, this is more just a vibe Pokemon, I suppose. I could probably put like an elephant Pokemon in there for Hannibal. I just feel like Tangela looks a little bit clumsy and not quite confident with itself. And I can kind of imagine Frank as a Tangela when we first meet him, if he was to be a Pokemon. Moving on to Hazel. The first one we have for Hazel is Spectria. Like her horse Orion. Again, there are many horse Pokemon, but it's a ghost type, so it ties into her having come back from the dead and her father being Pluto. I feel like Spectria is the best fit for Orion. Then we've got Sableye. I mean, look at it. Jules and her curse. Although if she were to have a Sableye, I would be a bit worried about her accidentally controlling its eye or something else. Third is Drillbur. Her way to be able to find her way underground. And how I think it was Frank that said the tunnels seem to take her where she wants to go rather than it being her finding the tunnels. This one's a bit interesting. This one's Spiritomb. She spent her time as a spirit. She ended up dying by bringing the earth upon her in some way, so was entombed. Feels a bit harsh towards Hazel, maybe a bit soon, but it does fit. So Spiritomb is her fourth Pokemon. Then obviously we've got Hazel's evolution. So we've gone for Umbreon, mostly because they're a dark type and she needs an evolution in this setup, so Umbreon it is. We've got Zorua. I think I'm pronouncing that right. Due to its illusion abilities, I think this ties nicely in with Hazel's manipulation of the mist. Last one on the team, the seventh wheel. I feel a bit bad for having him seventh in the video now. First up, we've got Colossal. Obviously, pretty Forge-esque. This is mainly what her face just is known for. Second, we've got Klinklang. Mechanical. Just makes sense for Leo, in fact. What's to stop him having multiple Klinklangs and trying to make a whole machine out of them if they're up for it? Charizard. I mean, there are many dragon-esque Pokemon that could have been in here for Festus. I was actually going to go for an actual dragon type rather than a flying fire type, However, I think Charizard fits best with him being a fire type as well. Leo's evolution is pretty obvious. Flareon makes the most sense because of his ability to create and manipulate fire. Then we've got Magneton. I feel like Leo would find this Pokemon very useful, would get on with it to help him achieve his projects. Also, the spherical centre of Magneton can in some way be like an Archimedes sphere, so Magneton almost feels like an Archimedes sphere in that way, and I think that fits what we see Leo do throughout Heroes of Olympus and beyond. Then the last Pokemon in this video is Solgaleo. This one is mostly in here because I think Leo would have a lot of fun making jokes and puns with the last part of this Pokemon's name being Leo. I could see him having a lot of fun with it. Right, so that is the Sevens Pokemon teams. I'm going to say, some of these are really easy to create, mostly the ones which have a particular type associated with them. I think Leo's probably got the coolest team out of all of them in terms of which Pokemon he's got. I think it's a pretty nice set of Pokemon. I'd be intrigued to know which ones you reckon would win in a fight if you pipped all the teams against one another, and if there are any Pokemon you maybe feel suit these teams better. I think some of these Pokemon definitely have weaker links to the Seven than others. If you like this video, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time for another video. Goodbye.